President Trump and President Zelenskyy, deeper discussions about Tomahawk missiles. They would most definitely fortify Ukraine and possibly change the course of the war. The escalating U.S.-Venezuela conflict. Trump says Nicolas Maduro offered vast economic concessions to the U.S. because he doesn't want to F-bomb around with America. Our own Robert Costa digging into New York's race for mayor, Mamdani, Cuomo, the trend lines and the ideological fault lines. Hello, everyone. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Let me welcome you to the Takeout. Let's talk about Tomahawk missiles. The United States invented them in the 1980s when Cold War tensions with the then Soviet Union ran high. The Tomahawk has a range of 1,000 to 1,500 miles, flies about 100 feet off the ground, and was designed to evade Soviet air defenses of that time. It was, then, another lethal chess piece in the Armageddon arms race. Tomahawks serve another purpose now, as weapons, for example, against Houthis in Yemen. Easily more than 200 have been fired at them in the past 2 years. Also, a Navy submarine fired 30 at Iran's Fordo nuclear facility as part of Operation Midnight Hammer in June. The U.S. fires most Tomahawks from ships or submarines. There is a Tomahawk land version, though its testing and platforms are not nearly as developed as those in the U.S. Navy. This brings us to Ukraine. President Zelenskyy, who met with President Trump at the White House today, very much wants Tomahawks. A map shows why. Ukrainian drones can and have hit Russian infrastructure targets, but missiles with a range of up to 1,500 miles open vastly more of Russia to potential attack. Tomahawks are very hard to detect, harder still to destroy in flight. As a weapon to punish or deter, Tomahawks would give Ukraine many more options than it has now. Trump has been coy about providing Tomahawks. That coyness, which may harden into resolve, has led Russian President Vladimir Putin back to talking with Trump. Hence this conversation that sprouted this week about another Trump-Putin summit soon in Hungary. Transparently, it appears, a Russian effort to delay and possibly short-circuit deliveries of Tomahawks from whatever source, U.S. or others. Now, about the possibility of Ukraine being able to strike deep within Russia today, Trump was the picture of coyness. Listen.
Would your administration allow Ukrainians to strike deep into Russia?
We're going to be talking about that. That's something we'll be talking about. You're right. It's an escalation, but we'll be talking about that.
Talking, as we all know, is not the same as doing. And Zelenskyy craves shipments, not words. For more on all this, we turn to Willie James Inman in West Palm Beach, Florida, where the president will be spending the weekend. Willie James, great to see you. Lots to dissect in terms of the Trump-Zelenskyy interaction. We have been schooled in the art of demeanor evaluation, so let's start there.
Hey there, Major. Good to be with you from West Palm Beach, Florida. Well, it certainly was an interesting meeting. Both leaders sitting down at the table is a huge contrast to what we saw earlier this year when that Oval Office meeting between Zelenskyy, the president, and the vice president just spiraled out of control. Now, of course, top of mind for Zelenskyy is getting security guarantees from the United States and getting those Tomahawk missiles. That long-range capability could perhaps help change the calculus of this war. But, of course, that is certainly something that is on the table, but not something that is necessarily approved by the President of the United States. And he mentioned himself that this could potentially escalate things, and the Russians could certainly see things that way. But nonetheless, Zelenskyy pushing forward after this over 2-hour phone call between President Putin and President Trump, where they agreed to not only meet again, but discuss the ending of the war. Zelenskyy is trying to put forward his needs and his wants to make sure that his country is supported, while President Putin is perhaps playing games, some experts could warn, with President Trump. And Trump was asked about that exact instance if President Putin was trying to buy time, and he said that that was possible, but he also said that Putin and Zelenskyy both want peace, even though Zelenskyy said that is certainly something that President Putin does not want.
Zelensky's demeanor was important in that meeting as well. I want to play for our audience sound from the Ukrainian president directed at President Trump. Let's listen.
My congratulations with your successful ceasefire in the Middle East.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you did it. And I think this is the momentum to finish Russia's war against Ukraine. I think that, yes, we understand that Putin is not ready. I think not ready, but I think that I'm confident that with your help, we can stop this war.
Clearly, the Ukrainian president complimenting President Trump and soliciting what he hoped to get back, which was some yes agreements. And that fusion there is something that the Ukrainian president clearly wanted to achieve.
Yeah, that's right, Major. I think he learned from his past interaction, as I mentioned earlier this year, that Oval Office meltdown, if you can call it. Certainly, President Zelenskyy has learned from that. He's learned from other world leaders that you really have to compliment President Trump to perhaps soften him up a little bit to get what you want. In this case, he wants some major arms from the U.S. for his nation to further push back against that Russian aggression.
Willie James Inman, West Palm Beach, Florida. As always, thank you, sir. I'm joined now by former United States Ambassador to Ukraine, Bill Taylor. Bill, always a pleasure to have you. Help my audience understand the Tomahawks, the potential difference they could make, and whether they need to come from the U.S. or possibly some other source.
Major, you bring up a good point. President Trump talked about limited number. I'm not sure there are limited numbers. I think actually, as you pointed out, we've been manufacturing these and actually using them since the 80s. Been a lot made and a lot have been exported. So there are other nations that have them in their inventories. And those could be, if President Trump were to say, go, that could help it as well. Just the threat, just the possibility of providing those Tomahawk weapons to the Ukrainians has apparently, as you just reported, gotten Putin's attention, asked him for, he requested this phone call yesterday because he's worried about Tomahawk. So this has a lot of pressure. This can be pressure on Putin.
And as I mentioned, the value is not just to attack, but to deter, to say we have them, and you should be aware of that. That possibly, if it were to happen, and it hasn't happened yet, not entirely balance things, but give something Ukraine doesn't currently possess to send a signal to Russia.
You're exactly right. It's two things. One, it can disrupt. Those kinds of strikes deep into Russia can disrupt attacks from Russia into Ukraine. But also, after some kind of cessation of fire, there needs to be the deterrent that you're talking about. And if the Ukrainians have that capability, and Putin knows they've got, that's a deterrence. That's what deterrence is.
How would you say, and how would you characterize, Bill, the atmosphere right now, Ukraine and the Trump administration?
As you've pointed out, much better. Much better. They've actually, it sounds like they respect each other. Right. It sounds like there's some good conversations going on there. President Zelenskyy recognizes that he needs the United States. He needs Putin. But he also recognizes at the same time that they need to put together their own capabilities. Right. The Europeans are the same place. Europeans know that their Americans may not be here forever. But they need us now. They need the Americans right now. They need to be developing their own capabilities, defense industrial, military capabilities, and so they're working in parallel.
One other thing the president raised today, and he talked about it throughout the week, that India, according to what he said, will no longer purchase Russian oil. We don't know if that's a fact, but the president is asserting that. That's another pressure point.
A big pressure point. Pressure on Putin is going to be key, and we've already talked about the Tomahawk pressure. The money flowing into the Russian economy, into the Russian treasury, that's keeping the war going, comes from oil and gas exports. And if the Indians, who are either the first or second largest purchaser of Russian oil, if they go down, if they stop or go down, that has a big effect on the revenues going and has an effect then on Putin's ability to push the war.
The Kremlin always puts out its own statement about these phone calls between Putin and Trump. In its summary yesterday, it said Tomahawks would not change the contour of the battlefield at all. That tells me they're assuming that the ground-based firing of Tomahawks is at least some period of time away, because, as I mentioned, those capabilities are less well-developed than sea-based deployment of Tomahawks. Or it could just be a flat-out lie. But the one thing the Kremlin did say is any Tomahawks in Ukraine would fundamentally alter the future of U.S.-Russia relations? How do you translate that? How do you interpret that?
I pay very little attention to what the Kremlin says. Very little. The relationship is going to be determined on how this war ends. If President Trump puts the pressure on Putin to end this war, like they're talking about doing, then the relations can develop after that. Right now, there are no big relations.
None at all. Ambassador William Taylor, always a pleasure. Bill, it's great to have you. Thank you so very much. The U.S. military struck a vessel suspected, keyword, suspected of carrying drugs in the Caribbean Sea on Thursday. It did not kill everyone on board. This marks the 6th known attack in that area in the last month. But it's the first in which there are survivors. At least 27 people have been killed in the previous 5 strikes. Earlier today, President Trump had this to say about Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and this escalating conflict.
He's offered everything. You're right. You know why? Because he doesn't want to around with the United States.
Expletive deleted, as you can probably discern for yourselves. Eleanor Watson joins me now. Ellie, that is our affectionate name for you here at CBS News. Catch us up on the scale of what has gone on and a significant change in the head of Southern Command that appears to be wrapped up in this in one way or the other.
Sure. Well, I'll start with the strike yesterday, because as you mentioned, it was the first one that has had survivors. So the U.S. Navy went and flew a search and rescue mission to pick up the 2 survivors and transported them to a U.S. Navy ship where they're being held. These are the first known survivors. They were on a semi-submersible is what it was described as to me, which is not quite a submarine in the way that you and I would think of it, but a vessel that can go shallow underwater. The other 5 strikes have in total killed about 30 people in the last month and a half. That's quite a lot of strikes in such a short period of time. The military has been increasingly focused on countering these drug cartels, which have historically been the responsibility of the Department of Homeland Security, because these alleged drug smugglers have been considered criminals and not combatants. I mention that because that could determine how these 2 survivors are handled going forward, that distinction, whether they are held as law of war detainees or as transferred to civilian law enforcement, as is traditionally done. Amid all of this, the head of U.S. Southern Command, in a surprise move yesterday, announced that he's going to retire early. We first heard it in an announcement from Secretary Hegseth, who thanked Admiral Halsey for his service, and then in a statement by Admiral Halsey himself. Neither man gave a reason for the early retirement, and officials tell us that there have been tensions between the 2 for a while now, and one official even suspected that Halsey speculated that Halsey may have been on the chopping block to be fired in the days ahead of yesterday's announcement. With his early retirement, though, that'll tee up a confirmation hearing in the Senate for the next commander of U.S. forces in that region, who can answer some questions senators definitely have about the end goal here in the Caribbean.
Southern Command is the one overseeing these operations in the Caribbean, and Admiral Alvin Halsey was in year 1 of a 3-year term as the head of Southern Command, creating all sorts of uncertainty and questions about the circumstances of his resignation, and that will certainly come up when there's a confirmation hearing for his replacement. Eleanor Watson, as always, thank you very much. Up next on The Takeout, the debate showdown to be the next mayor of New York City. The 3 candidates square off on housing affordability, crime, and President Trump. Are terrorist immigration crackdowns and other things killing small businesses in America? That's sort of the lingo. I'll talk with a small business expert who says the obituaries, well, they've just been written way too soon. And how do you use ChatGPT? Restaurant recommendations, holiday planning? How about some erotica? Well, that option is on its way. We'll tell you more about it, whether you want to know it or not. The Takeout returns in 90 seconds. Welcome back to The Takeout. 3 candidates vying to be New York City's next mayor. Well, they had a debate last night. Here's some of what we heard from Zoran Mamdani, Andrew Cuomo, and Curtis Sliwa.
The definition of experience is not doing the same thing again and again and hoping for a different result. That's actually the definition of insanity.
In other words, what the Assemblyman said is he has no experience. And this is not a job for someone who has no management experience to run 300,000 people, no financial experience to run $115 billion budget. He literally has never had a job.
Thank God I'm not a professional politician. We have the architect and we have the apprentice of no cash bail, which has been a disaster.
Robert Costa joins me now for his take. You've been up there reporting in New York City. You got a feel for it. Where is this race sitting as far as you're concerned? What are the ideological fault lines? What are the trend lines?
Well, to boil it down,
Please.
You really see in Mamdani up close when I was in Washington Heights and talking to his voters at a rally earlier this week. It's the Senator Bernie Sanders movement transition politically toward New York City.
And with a younger component.
Younger, a diverse coalition, but it's the same language. He's talking about oligarchs, he's talking about billionaires, and he's talking about universal child care.
And does the Cuomo lack of experience argument cut into anything that you've seen as far as Mamdani's lead or electability?
You would think so. New York has a tendency to look at these people with a lot of scrutiny, but every time Cuomo seems to make inroads, his conduct and these allegations from the past is brought up as an issue.
Right.
So he's never, so far in this race, based on my conversations with voters, been able to really focus on Mamdani.
Can't get any open field running of his own. Curtis Lee was the Republican perennial candidate for New York City mayor. There is this hovering dialogue about what if he dropped out and if he did, would that change the race? But you don't detect any of that
Well, we saw even President Trump weighed in on the race and on Curtis Sliwa, and he said he doesn't have it, in Trump's view. And there's a sense among New York Republicans that he just doesn't have a shot. So it's going to be interesting to see, do some of those Republicans really just pull the lever for Cuomo?
Mm-hmm. It's important, and we obsess about it, possibly we could be accused of that on this show, because New York City is the most important city in America. I don't think there's any question about that.
I mean, I grew up outside of Philadelphia.
I know. Philly's important. LA is important. San Diego, my beloved hometown, really important.
There's like
lots
San
of great
Diego
cities, but New York is the fulcrum for America in a lot of different ways, definitionally, image, and is also a seat of great American capitalist innovation and the future, as it often says about itself. And a socialist Democrat being elected mayor of that city is a possibly seminal event in American politics. Maybe, maybe not.
Well, it's interesting. Mamdani's addressed this in recent interviews, and he's talked about how David Dinkins, the former Democratic New York mayor, had a very strong relationship with the Democratic Socialists of America, wasn't appalled by Democratic Socialist ideas. And New York has a long history of big government.
Right. I mean, Fiorello LaGuardia was very close to FDR. Many people accuse FDR of being a socialist-type Democrat. So there is...
In a debate, Mamdani said his favorite president, FDR.
FDR, okay. Is there any scenario, Robert, based on your reporting up there from New York and feel on the ground, that there's anything other than, on November 4th, election night, a Mamdani victory?
Oh, I never like to make a prediction on an election like this, especially with a political outsider who seems to be well ahead, but you don't know. There is always that silent majority. I mean, New York has a history. Think about
and as Cuomo often says, a much larger general election turnout model than in a Democratic primary.
And just think about history. About half century ago in New York, they elected William F. Buckley Jr.'s brother, Jim Buckley, U.S. Senator. And William F. Buckley Jr. runs for mayor of New York in 1965, does better than expected. There's sometimes a quiet conservative vote in New York. It elected Bloomberg. It elected Giuliani. But at this point, all the movement seems to be toward Mamdani. Here's why I really think it's going to be Mamdani based on my reporting. Aggrieved, frustrated millennials, Black, white, Asian, Latino, and other ethnicities, all seem to be frustrated with New York City and their economic opportunity. And maybe they were drifting center or right. They're with Mamdani because he's the change agent. And if this is a change election, he seems to have a really good position.
And very quickly, Robert, in New York, the mayor can do some things, but he still has to deal with the city council and the governor of New York.
And the president.
And the president.
If they send the National Guard to New York City.
Right. Or they withhold federal funds, as Trump has most definitely threatened to do.
And we've seen these clashes before. Remember Gerald Ford?
Right.
Drop dead. There's been a clash
Ford to New York, drop dead. The immortal headline, either the Post or the Daily News.
Fights ahead for whomever wins this race, but if it's Mamdani, you can bet the White House is watching closely.
Robert Costa, excellent stuff as always. Thank you, sir. Next, the other high-profile debate. It happened last night. Violent text messages sent by the Democratic nominee for a Virginia Attorney General. Well, those took center stage, understandably so. The candidate's apology and what it might mean for the race. That's next, right here on The Takeout. Welcome back. In Virginia, candidates for Attorney General took the debate stage. That race has garnered national attention, and here's why. Newly revealed text messages sent by the Democratic nominee, Jay Jones, back in 2022 that said a Republican lawmaker, the one in question was the Speaker of the House of Delegates at the time, should be shot and his children should die. Jones has apologized and said he's ashamed. National political reporter for The Hill, Julia Manchester, joins me now. Julia, thank you so much for joining us. So the reason this has taken on national significance is because the text messages and the various Democratic and Republican reaction to it in the Attorney General's race has spilled over quite conspicuously into the race for governor between Republican nominee Winsome Earl-Sears and the Democratic nominee Abigail Spanberger. I'll get your assessment of that in a second, but I just want to play for our audience the sound from the debate stage last night. First, Jay Jones, the Democratic nominee for Attorney General, then Jason Miyares, the sitting Attorney General and Republican.
Let me be very clear. I am ashamed. I am embarrassed. And I'm sorry. I am sorry to Speaker Gilbert. I'm sorry to his family. I'm sorry to my family. And I'm sorry to every single Virginian. I cannot take back what I said. But you have my word that I will always be accountable for my mistakes. And you also have my word that I will spend every waking moment fighting for you.
We have seen a window to who Jay Jones is and the way he thinks of people that disagree with him. Abraham Lincoln said that character is what you do in the dark when no one is watching. But now we know what he was doing in the dark. Jay Jones was angry at Todd Gilbert. Why? Because Todd Gilbert said kind words about a Democrat that had passed away, Joe Johnson.
Todd Gilbert was the Speaker of the House of Delegates at the time. So break this all down for us. Its effect on the gubernatorial race, on the race itself, because if you're in this area, as I am, I live here, you see commercials about this race relentlessly.
Yeah, we even see them here in Washington, D.C. I was watching the TV this morning, and they were all on that on TV. So look, for the Attorney General race, you know, it has made what is normally a quieter statewide race a national story in many ways. You and I are talking about this. You have the President of the United States weighing in, calling on Jay Jones to drop out of the race and endorsing Jason Miyares for Attorney General. Now, for the debate itself, this was definitely an opportunity for Jay Jones to come out publicly again and explain himself for those text messages and come up with a strategy to push back against Jason Miyares. And that strategy appeared to last night be constantly pivoting back to Donald Trump and tying Jason Miyares to Donald Trump. Now, Jay Jones's campaign actually within the last hour announced that they have raised $500,000 in the 24 hours since last night's debate. That's not an insignificant amount of money for a statewide attorney general race. So for Jay Jones, they say they feel the momentum. However, for Republicans and someone like Winsome Earl-Sears, who's been lagging behind in that race for governor, she has used this to try to get back at Abigail Spanberger and tie Abigail Spanberger, the Democratic nominee, to Jay Jones. Abigail Spanberger has tried to distance herself from these text messages, basically declining to endorse Jones, but at the same time not calling on him to drop out.
And it seems from the Republican advertising, there's only one issue in this race, the text messages from Jay Jones, whether it's the governor's race or the attorney general race. Democrats are trying to make it about President Trump, about federal worker layoffs, about access to abortion rights and other issues.
That's absolutely right. We are seeing Republicans drill into this, these Jay Jones text messages in an effort to essentially say, look, this guy is running to be the top law enforcement officer in Virginia, but he's talked about political violence and, you know, shooting the former Speaker of the House in Virginia. And of course, the timing of this is, you know, would appear not to be coincidental. We know that it happened, or these text messages surfaced weeks after the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. So we're having this nationwide discussion about political violence. So Republicans are trying to use that to their advantage. But for Democrats, they are very much trying to use the government shutdown, which is impacting many Virginians as well as people across the country, but many Virginians, because we know that many federal workers who live in Virginia have been furloughed and are at risk of losing their jobs.
And as we noted on the show earlier this week, President Obama has cut an ad for Abigail Spanberger, a sign that they know from internal polling that the race has narrowed somewhat because you bring in someone like Obama when you need them. Julia Manchester, always a pleasure. Thank you so much. The headlines, well, they keep spelling doom for America's small business. Tariffs, inflation, healthcare costs, labor shortages, apparently all taking a devastating toll. But do the stories reflect reality on the ground? What a Business Insider has to say about that question next here on The Takeout. Welcome back to The Takeout. Here is a look at what else we and now you are watching this evening. Former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton pleaded not guilty today to charges accusing him of mishandling classified information. Bolton surrendered in a federal court in Maryland less than 24 hours after being indicted by a grand jury. In a statement, Bolton accused President Trump of, quote, weaponizing the Justice Department, unquote, and compared the Trump administration to Stalin's secret police. The House Oversight Committee, via the Democrats, has released new documents related to the Jeffrey Epstein case. Late today, transcripts of the committee's interview with former U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida, Alex Acosta, was made public. Acosta negotiated a plea deal that drew a lot of controversy because it saw Epstein in 2008 avoid federal charges and serve 13 months in jail, registering as a sex offender and then later settling with victims. In questioning, Acosta said he thought going to trial would be a, quote, crapshoot due to potential lack of cooperation from some of Epstein's victims. Related to this, Britain's Prince Andrew is giving up his royal titles. What's the connection? Well, today's announcement comes days before the posthumous memoir of Jeffrey Epstein accuser Virginia Giuffre is due for release. That coming almost 6 months after she took her own life. Giuffre has repeatedly said to have been sexually trafficked by Epstein to Prince Andrew. Buckingham Palace says Andrew will stop using all of his titles, including Duke of York. Now, if you have been scanning your phone or the web, you might have run across stories that say over and over that things are killing small businesses, whether they're President Trump's tariffs, deportations, inflation, healthcare, or some other issue. But according to an opinion piece in The Hill that caught our eye, none of these issues are really killing anything. In fact, there might be evidence that small businesses, if not thriving, are certainly surviving. The article's author, Gene Marks, joins me now. He is the founder and president of the Marks Group, which is a small business consulting firm. Gene, I'm glad to see you. Thanks for joining us. The times are challenging, as you say, but not destructive. Explain to my audience why.
Yeah, it's major. So I've been covering small business, and writing in various places like The Hill and The Guardian for the past 20 years. And I do come across a lot of articles that say how this and that is killing small businesses, and there never seems to be a lack of them. But, in just the past few months, there have been, many surveys that have come out. PNC Bank, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, GoDaddy, the National Federation of Independent Businesses, which has been doing this every month, gauging small business optimism. And I mean, major small business optimism has been actually quite high. In fact, it's been very strong, according to many of these surveys. And even though the NFIB survey, which just came out this week, showed a little bit of a dip, it's still, over their 52-year average for small businesses. And so again, when I see a lot of these articles that are saying like, oh my God, this is killing small businesses and that is killing small businesses, I don't read that in the surveys. And then secondly, as you said, I mean, I run a business consulting firm. We have about 600 clients around the country, small and mid-sized businesses. I speak to a lot of business groups throughout the year. I'm not seeing a lot of businesses being killed right now. I am seeing businesses facing challenges, of course, like we do in any year. And other businesses that are, hopeful and expecting some better times in the next couple of years based on some of the recent policies that have been passed by the Trump administration. But I'm not seeing a lot of businesses being killed. Now, of course, it's a big country we live in. There are 34 million small businesses, right. So it's very tough to generalize. So I'm sure there are many businesses that have their challenges and are struggling. But overall, it's just, I think it's a little bit overhyped about the killing of small businesses in this country.
Gene, rank in the order of severity these stresses: federal government shutdown, labor shortages, healthcare costs.
So first of all, it depends. The federal government shutdown isn't affecting a lot of my clients because they're not really reliant on the government for their revenues. and they are also if they're needing government services, they can wait a little bit longer. So you asked to rank the severity, that would probably come in last place. Labor is becoming an easier issue, although it's still high on the list of many businesses. The immigration crackdown is not making it any easier because a lot of documented workers are afraid to come out of hiding for fear of being deported. That's a whole other issue. So yeah, it's putting more pressure on finding good people. So I'd say that's next up. You mentioned healthcare costs, so I'm glad you bring that up. You know, Major, like healthcare costs went up 9% in 2024. They went up 9% in 2025, and most surveys are predicting another 9% increase in 2026. And as you know, businesses have to provide healthcare if they're competing for good talent, and small businesses are really struggling with that issue. I got to put that at the top of the list in 2026. It is a major, major concern, and it's becoming even bigger, even as we speak.
Keeping the reality all very real for us. Gene Marks, I appreciate it very much. Thanks for your time.
Thanks,
J.B. Pritzker, he is the governor of Illinois. $1 million win. $1 million. Playing blackjack in Vegas. We're going to talk about that. That's just super fun. Next on the Takeout. Welcome back to the Takeout. I want to bring in our reporter panel, Tom LoBianco, co-founder and editor of 24 Site News, Laura Davison, Washington Deputy Bureau Chief, Bloomberg News. I know both of you have won more than $1 million playing blackjack in Vegas. I'm sure you disclosed it on your taxes, but you're not in political office, so you don't have to defend it. J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, does. He says he's giving it to charity. This is kind of a wild story, Tom.
It's hilarious.
Yeah. By the way, I love the shirt, man.
Thank you.
Brother, man,
Thanks,
that shirt is awesome. And one day when I'm courageous enough, I'm going to wear one just like it. I'm about 6 million years away from that courage, but one day it's going to arrive.
This is why you go independent.
Exactly. That is the shirt of an independent journalist, ladies and gentlemen.
Why is it that the billionaires are always the ones winning this much? It makes we were talking about this in the green room ahead of time. It kind of makes you wonder what else is out there.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, look, he clearly has the limelight in 2028 right now.
Right.
Him and Newsom. All right.
And Laura, got to disclose it now.
You do got to disclose it. You also have to disclose, or can disclose, gambling losses on your tax return. You can net that against your income. So that's one thing to watch. Tax returns are not fun things to look at, but this is clearly a fun one. And, particularly for a billionaire, he's worth, close to $5 billion, according to the Bloomberg Index. But, 1 million is not going to make or break the bank for him. But clearly this is a game he likes to play.
So artificial intelligence is entering our life as political reporters. It is a fact, and we'll get to that fact in a second. But the Republican Senatorial Committee has put out an AI-generated bit of video of Charles Schumer, the Democratic leader in the Senate. If we have it, play it.
Chuck Schumer thinks playing with Americans' livelihoods is just a game. When asked about the government shutdown, Schumer said,
"Every day gets better for us."
Okay, that didn't happen on video. That is an AI generation of something that Schumer did say, said it to Punchbowl News, but he didn't say it on video, but it actually captures it if it was. The NRSC, the National Republican Senatorial Committee, said AI is here to stay, and you can either use it and exploit it or not use it and get defeated. Laura?
This is,
our new reality.
Where the new battlegrounds are headed. In the olden days, they would have just put up a photo of Chuck Schumer and
quoted
said,
it, yes,
throw it up on
attributed
the screen.
it.
But now you've got the little sinister smile that pops up. It's his AI version of Chuck Schumer's voice. And this is why you have a lot of folks clamoring, hey, we need to have some rules of the road. We need to have regulation here. Clearly, the campaigns, the parties, and the tech companies, of course, are running way faster than Congress is going to. However, now that it's affecting Congress, they may decide, hey, we want to put a little guardrail here.
Oh, sure. The politicians will put in all sorts of rules of the road we can rely on. Right, Tom? You independent journalists, you.
Why does it take Democrats so long to catch up on this stuff? That just
There's plenty of material
to blow my mind. Really.
The Republicans try to box them out and get to the tech faster.
Yeah.
And establish a sort of beachhead to say, we're going to do it. So roll or get rolled over.
We know folks, outlets where they're starting to use AI to write stories right now. It's
not
here.
on this show, by the way.
Yes. You're not AI. Not holograms, not AI.
No.
It's here. As Laura says, got to deal with it. You can't cry.
Can't cry. How would you evaluate this week for President Trump? I mean, it starts, he's in the Middle East. He's seeing the hostages released. He is convening this massive summit in Sharm el-Sheikh this week. He's talking at the end of it about possibly pulling Putin closer to ending the war in Ukraine. Seems like a lot.
It was a huge week for him, particularly on the foreign policy side. He got all of the laudation and the praise and everything that he's wanted, really since he, first came down the golden escalator in Trump Tower. He even his critics are crediting the ceasefire deal in Gaza. They are not necessarily mentioning him by name, but this is a real high point for him. I'll note he's also headed to Asia next week for part of this APEC summit. He's hoping to have this meeting with Xi Jinping, perhaps get a trade deal there. He had a meeting at the White House today with Zelenskyy, looking at a meeting in about 2 weeks with Putin, trying to get some sort of peace deal in the Ukrainian-Russia conflict. So he's clearly riding high on all of this and trying to parlay that success from earlier in the Mideast into some of these other deals.
And Tom, it used to be Trump Nobel Peace Prize was a Trumpist idea and notion. That's now expanding in a lot of different directions.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Outside the Trump world.
I keep thinking of the second terms in terms of capital L legacy. And, look, Cachado wins it and honors Trump with it. Now, she didn't give it to him, but says honors him with. And, of course, now we have these excursions. I mean, it's not a very secret CIA op if you announce it.
It's Venezuelan, yes.
Yes.
Right.
But we have, as Laura mentioned, all of this foreign policy movement right now. I think about what happened with Bolton and the classified stuff that he had, and it reminded me so much of the classified documents that Trump had, including stacked in boxes with fake time covers. Well, he actually has a real time cover now for Gaza. I mean, remarkable.
Doesn't like the picture much, but he's on the cover of Time magazine. And yet we have the shutdown, no end in sight, and an administration that appears to relish the power it believes it possesses to extract, if not vengeance, some manner of budgetary retribution against, they say it, not me, Democrat programs.
Yes, Trump said today, we still haven't seen this list, but that there would be a list of Democratic programs that would be cut, that he was going to release. We did see the Army Corps of Engineers just a couple of hours ago announce that they're cutting about $11 billion.
$11 billion.
From a bunch of different, particularly water programs for different harbors.
All in blue states.
All in states that voted for Kamala Harris. That is, clearly they are looking at, where is the money? Where are the federal workers? They fired about 4,000 federal workers last week. That's currently being litigated. But there's, a lot of very precise movements of they're trying to use the federal budget in a way to hit Democrats the hardest.
Laura Davis, you get the last word, but Tom LoBianco, you have the best button-down shirt that has ever appeared on the Takeout. You will hold that honor for a very long time, sir. Wear it with pride. Tom LoBianco, Laura Davis, and thanks so much. Still to come. Getting hot in here. ChatGPT is about to offer up some spicy, you know what I mean by that, policy changes for its adult users. More on that move to open the door for people who are looking for romance and affection of a distinctly adult variety. That is next here on The Takeout. I will proceed with caution, I promise you. Welcome back to The Takeout. On the show, we are very curious about and enjoy discussing all sides of artificial intelligence, benefits, concerns, even potential nightmare scenarios. This one, let me say with some delicacy, is a new angle. This week, OpenAI's ChatGPT, I can say it, announced a policy change that will soon allow adult users to access a less censored version of that chatbot that will include, drumroll please, erotica. Ashley Gold joins me now. She is the senior tech policy reporter at Axios. It's great to have you here. So Sam Altman, when talking about this, said this version will behave in a more human-like way, and I'm going to quote him here, but only if you want it, not because we are usage maxing. That sounds vulgar, even though it isn't. What does he mean by that?
Let me try to explain.
Please.
Usage maxing would be trying to engage as many users as possible so that you have a lot of people on the platform, a lot of people using it, a lot of people putting in information that the chatbot can then train on. It would up engagement is what he's talking about.
And its engagement is important because they're not yet profitable.
They're not yet profitable, and the more people that are on the platform, the smarter the platform gets, because more and more people are putting in, inputs for the chatbot to then take and, train itself on and, spit back out relevant information.
And we're not shy about this, but let's be honest with ourselves about the beginning of the internet revolution. It was in part fueled by desire for internet porn.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is something that these companies have to think about. Do they want to be a safe space that anybody of all ages could go on, learn some things, enjoy? Or is it going to be really an adult-only experience? When you have that, there has to be a lot more safety measures in place.
And how do the tech masters get to the place where they are truly policing that space to make sure adults are adults and children are not falling prey or victim or overly using this or becoming addicted to it?
It's the most difficult thing in the world, and we have seen the
traditional... And their track record is to be perfectly generous, mixed at best.
Absolutely. We've seen this with Meta, with YouTube, with Twitter, with Snap and TikTok. It's really hard to make sure that these spaces are safe for children. You could have the strictest policies in the world, but kids can get around them, teens can get around them. They can look at something that an older kid was able to access and they took a screenshot and they have it on their phone. It is impossible to make foolproof no matter what you do.
And there is some effort in Congress, or at least some dialogue, about legislating in this space. I've read Josh Hawley, Republican from Missouri, is kind of active.
Yeah, I just reported exclusively in Axios this week that Hawley, who's been very active on sort of working on kid safety online, and he's not been super impressed by all the AI bigwigs coming to the Hill. He wants to ban chatbots entirely for kids under 18, and he wants chatbots to also have a disclaimer and tell people you are not talking to a human. Now, that's just one senator, and there are plenty of senators that, are all in on AI. It might be hard for him to get a lot of support, but we're seeing a ton happen on the state level as well. In California this week, Governor Newsom signed the first in the nation bill on chatbots, but some people said that didn't go far enough.
So the idea here would be, if you're so interested, so inclined as an adult, you chat with a chatbot erotically and it chats back to you in an erotic way?
Yeah, I think he's saying that there's a future in which if you're looking for some sort of companionship online and you want to have an adult conversation, Sam Altman doesn't want to be the guy telling you can't. And he sees a world in which ChatGPT can be used that way, the same way we use ChatGPT to make us a grocery list or help us with work. He wants it
to... Or design a workout or something else?
Or design a workout, he
says. Or lay out a gardening platform for the backyard or whatever?
Yeah, right now he's saying, who am I to tell you can't use it this way?
And who am I to say to myself, I can't make money in this space and justify it some other way?
Well, that could be some of the subtext, yeah.
Because it would be, to go back to our original conversation jumping off point, there is a history where access to this information does bring more people and for a longer period of time, both of which are transactional in this space.
And these companies need user engagement. They need people using the platform.
And they are asserting that they can police this in a way? Or they're going to try?
They say they're going to try. Right now, they do a certain amount of age gating to ensure you are the age you say you are when you log onto ChatGPT. Sometimes you show an ID. Sometimes they guess your age based on the way that you talk to the chatbot. But like I said before, none of that is foolproof. You could use an older sibling's account. You could use your parents' account when they're not home. Age verification is really, really hard. I mean, Meta struggled with it. This is before even the world of AI, just kids using social media at all. It's been very hard to tackle this issue. Anyone of a certain age knows how much kids are better at all of this than we are. Ashley Gold, a pleasure. Thanks so much for coming in. I appreciate it. Happy Friday, everyone. This is The Takeout. We are relentlessly curious, we are reliably civil, and we are just occasionally clever.